Hello, I'm Mac Oliver from Off-Road Outlaws YouTube channel. Today we're going to be installing a set of full flight standard travel plus 2 extended A-arms on our 2017 Yamaha Raptor 700R. Full flight A-arms are built with high quality parts and materials. They have a wide selection of colors available to match whatever theme you're running on your quad. Full flight A-arms are completely rebuildable, so if you need new heim joints or ball joints, replacement parts are available. Now, let's get started with the install. So as you can see, I've already removed the previous A-arms from the quad. When you get ready to install your full flight A-arms, make sure your heim joints and ball joints are screwed all the way in, as this is how you'll be making your adjustments in caster and camber later in the install. So you line your heim joints up inside the frame mounts here, and you're going to have to work your bolt through the frame and those heim joints. Full Flight does a great job manufacturing these things so that it's easier to do. That way you're not fussing with the part itself trying to install it. And I want to point out right off the bat how free that is. The freer your A-arms move up and down, the easier it is for your shocks to do their job. Okay, so let's get the upper A-arm and get it installed. When you receive your A-arms, they're going to come with zip ties through the heim joints so you don't lose your spacers. We're going to snip those zip ties off so that we can install our A-arm. Be careful, these are not captured in place, so they will come loose on you and fall out. That's why they put the zip ties on them before they ship them to you. So once you have your A-arm roughly in place, you're going to need to install this spacer between the heim joints to take up the slack and to protect your bolt from being bent or to get sand and stuff like that inside of the joints there, prematurely wear them out. So this is a little tricky. There we go. Just required a little bit of effort on my part to get it in there. I don't advise using a ratchet, but it's what I had handy, so that's what I used. I'm going to go ahead and stick this nut and washer on this top part just so I can keep it separated from the other nuts and bolts. Okay, now we're going to need to install our spindle. So here, as you can see, we have our spindle. What we need to do is install the ball joints through the top and bottom hole in our spindle. Same way they came off of the stock or previous A-arms on your quad. So you're going to run your ball joint through that hole. And for right now, we're just going to loosely put the washer and nut into place, just to kind of hold everything until we can get the bottom side on as well. Okay, so now we're going to put the bottom into the bottom of the spindle and do the same thing. I'm going to attach the washer and the nut loosely just to hold everything in place until we can get our caster and camber adjusted. Okay, and there we go. So when you're replacing your A-arms with extended A-arms, you'll also need to replace your tie rod. Full Flight also has those available, so we're going to install the tie rods to match the A-arms. So once you have your tie rod started, you just screw them in until you get the hub sitting in a neutral position, at least as close as you can get it by eye. You can do final adjustments once you have the quad completely back together and you can actually measure. So as you can see, I've gotten everything tightened down and in place. My ball joints are tight, my tie rod is installed, my A-arms are installed and the bolts tightened down that hold it to the frame. We're basically going to repeat the process on the other side, and then we'll be ready to install the tires and do our final adjustments. So as you can see, I've already reinstalled the tires and the shocks and have the quad sitting on the ground by itself. So one of the first things I've noticed is the top of the tires are leaning in a little too far, so we have to adjust our camber and try to get those as close to straight up and down as we can. And another thing that I've noticed is that we need to get our angle right from the top of the ball joint to the bottom ball joint. For motocross, we try to adjust them to where they're pretty close to right over the top of each other. That gives you the best, makes your quad more nimble in the turns. The further back it is would be more for like drag racing or dune riding, where you're in straight lines going really fast. When the ball joint on the top is a little bit behind the one on the bottom, then it helps it to go straight. So what we're going to do here is take the bolt out where the top A-arm attaches to the frame. We're going to take the nut off, pull the bolt back, and rotate this heim joint out a few turns. By rotating it out, it's going to create clearance here by our shock, and it's also going to allow us to get the angles right as far as one ball joint in relation to the other. So I'm going to get everything loosened up and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so as you can see, I've taken the nut off the back and slid the bolt back enough to allow this heim joint to pull out, and I'm simply going to rotate it. That's one turn, two turns, three turns. I'm going to rotate it 4 turns and slide it back into place and see how that looks. We want to count the turns so that we make sure that we get the other side the exact same distance as we do this side. So give me a second to stick it back together and we'll see how that looks. Okay, so as you can see, I've slipped the heim joint back into place and put the bolt back in place. And looking at the angle now and the clearance, first of all, let me point that out. The amount of clearance between the shock and the A-arm now is good on both sides. There's enough room to get my finger between the shock and the A-arm on the front and the back. And also, our angle's looking a little bit better. Now the top ball joint is almost directly, over the bottom ball joint. So our caster should be about right now. I turned the heim joint 4 turns, so we're going to tighten everything back down on this side and repeat the process on the other side, and then we'll start to address the camber. So as you can see here, we've turned the ball joint out 2 turns. That gets our camber adjusted so our wheel is straight up and down. We're going to repeat the process on the other side, and after that we're going to make sure that all of our bolts are tightened down. Everything from our shocks to where our heim joints are connected to the frame. Going to make sure our ball joints are tight, our shock joints. Going to make sure that our brake lines are attached to the A-arms. You can use zip ties or whatever you need. Make sure there's enough slack on each end so that they don't kink whenever you turn or whenever the suspension flexes. And after that, we're going to adjust our toe in with our tie rods. So once I get everything tightened down, we're going to give that a shot. So as you can see, we've got our pipe attached to both sides, and we've measured the distance between the front and the rear of the pipe and adjusted the tie rods so that the front is 1/8 of an inch narrower than the rear. That gives us our proper toe in. So that pretty much wraps it up for installing your full flight A-arms. We hope we've been able to be some help to you today. Thanks for watching.